Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Smart Human Podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of chatting with actor Fran Drescher. Yes, you may know her as the star of the TV show The Nanny, but she's also an author, an activist, and an educator. Today, we are talking about her work in health education, her history as a cancer survivor, and her plans as new president of the Screen Actors Guild, and much, much more. So stay tuned. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Smart Human Podcast. I have the pleasure of interviewing a new friend-ish, but a wonderful person who I'm so delighted to chat with. Her name is Fran Drescher, and in case you don't know her, she is an actor. She's an activist, an educator, and so much more, and we're going to get into all of that today. So thank you so much, Fran, for taking the time to be on the show.
My pleasure, Ailey. Absolutely. I totally always support you.
Yeah, and that has been part of the excitement and my feeling of loyalty to the work you're doing is because you really are the real deal. And I appreciate that since the day we met, which maybe we'll get into at some point during this conversation. But let's start because I really want to get, all of the things that you've been doing and that you're doing now in terms of health, wellness, sustainability. But let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
Let's go back to your early roots and tell me a little bit about how you sort of evolved into this health and wellness world. Tell me what events in your life may have shaped you. Get us started on how you entered this new world or relatively new world.
Well, I think it was a collection of different life experiences. The kind of dissolve of a marriage, being a rape victim, ultimately getting cancer, and needing to unpack everything and really figure out what pain I wasn't dealing with, figure out what baggage I was carrying around that I needed to let go of, and ultimately examine my lifestyle. And then kind of also take apart and rebuild how I think America's health system should be. And not only looking at what the end symptom is or the sickness is as it expresses itself, but actually what the causation is and what am I doing to erode my immune system on a daily basis that may make me vulnerable to a lot of different problems. So as we always say at cancerschmancer.org, mind, body, and spirit. I had to get my mind straightened out. I had to get my body on the right track, and I had to become more spiritual. And that is a daily practice, trying to balance those three elements. It's something that you always have to stay connected with and remind yourself when you're going off the rails to be aware of that too. And constantly making choices based off of honoring your body and trying to live your best life.
So back in 2002, I guess, was the time that you got sick or diagnosed. You were feeling not well, and you went through what, eight?
It was.
8 doctors.
I was not feeling well for a couple of years. The last years of the Nanny. Mm-hmm. We ended the Nanny in 1999, and in 2000, I was diagnosed.
And you went through several doctors. You had lots of people tell you that you were too sick to have anything serious. Is that the story?
Not too sick.
I mean, too young to be sick. Too young to be sick. I apologize.
Yes. It took me 2 years and 8 doctors to get a proper diagnosis. And yes, they felt like, even though I had classic uterine cancer symptoms, I was typically too young and too thin. Although 25% of all women who get uterine cancer are young and thin. So that's 1 in 4, it seems like. It would have been worth taking a simple but excruciating endometrial biopsy at the doctor's office. But that took me 2 years to get, because doctor number one said, you're too young for an endometrial biopsy. And instead of asking, well, wait, what would that prove or disprove? I just, took it for face value and was quietly thrilled that I was too young for anything.
So what made you keep going? I mean, a lot of patients that I see, by the time they get to me, they've been through 5 or 6 or 7 doctors. But the question is, what do you think made you keep going? I mean, was it just being in pain and discomfort? Or do you just think you had some kind of, component of your personality that's a fighter?
That definitely is first and foremost. I mean, first of all, no one was helping me. And I don't give anyone power over my body. I don't give anyone that much credit. I don't, turn anyone into a deity. Nothing that they say is gospel to me. It's like, I don't know whether you're such a great diagnostician, who I may be going to see. I don't know who you are. I don't know what your life is like, how distracted you are. I don't even know what kind of a student you were in medical school. I don't know anything about you. I just know you got a nice office. A couple of people I know go to you. Big deal. And I'm a executive producer. I took my career into my own hands. I'm certainly going to take my body into my own hands. I don't give anyone power of attorney over my money. I'm certainly not going to do it over my body. And if you're not proving to me to be somebody that's helping me, it's time to move on. And I'm not worried that I'm going to hurt your feelings. Too bad. This is my life and I got to, figure it out. And the symptoms weren't going away. If anything, they were becoming worse. And by the 2 years down the road, doctor number 8 put me on a hormone replacement therapy that ended up exacerbating my symptoms so badly that, even though she was still convinced I was perimenopausal, and my only problem was what essentially is a very benign perimenopausal condition, early menopause, she said, let's do an endometrial biopsy just to be sure. But while she's doing it, she's explaining to me that I have like 5 minutes of fertility left and I should really go to a fertility doctor and freeze an embryo with my boyfriend. So she was doing it, but she didn't really think that was the problem. And then 3 days later, she called me and said, you have adenocarcinoma. I'm very surprised. And I said, what's that? And she said, uterine cancer. And that was the dividing day, BC and AC.
Interesting way to put it. Yeah. I think that just changes your whole world. That's pretty remarkable.
And I mean, I don't know. I mean, there are some pretty earth-shattering things that happen to people in their lives, but being told you have cancer is right up there, I'm sure.
I myself have my own history of cancers in my life, and so I can concur with you that it's also what I thought was interesting about the being too young to have cancer. When I had a mole removed, and the dermatologist said, "Oh, go have fun, go hang out in New York and have a good time. It looks fine." I think those are the kind of the misconceptions, the stereotypes that, I think can really take us off our journey. And I think you have to have gumption. You have to have real gumption to keep going and trying to find the answers. So that didn't stop you. You went on to write a book, right? Cancer Schmancer was actually a book. People think of it just as sort of an organization that came out of this, which was...
Yeah, no, it's a New York Times bestselling book. And as I went on my book tour and lecture circuit, I began to form ideas about what's wrong with our current medical system, what needs to be changed. And so I realized that the book was not the end, but just the beginning of what became a life mission. And so the Cancer Schmancer book morphed into the Cancer Schmancer Movement.
So tell me about the Cancer Schmancer Movement, which I've had the privilege to kind of connect with you on. What the inspiration to do the foundation was really based on, and I know you have a mission statement that really talks about 3 things: prevention, early detection, and policy change. So tell me a little bit about how you have been able to throw those things out there in a positive way.
Well, we have pivoted the responsibility of your wellness onto you primarily, because as you well know, Ailey, much of what we suffer from has to do with the toxins and carcinogens that we expose ourselves to on a daily basis. And people have been numbed down and dumbed down for so long that they watch these commercials and they think, I'm going to buy that because it's going to make my clothes smell like springtime. And I'm going to spray my furniture with this right next to my pet because it's going to freshen the air. And I'm going to eat this food because it's on sale and it comes in a plastic package and, it's 2 for 1. And I don't really care how it got there or what it's made of. But it tastes good. And we've forgotten what food really tastes like. And our country is deeply in business with the chemical industry. It's in our agriculture and it's in our homes in such a devastating way that we are one of the sickest nations on the planet. And because we're such enormous consumers, while we're bringing ourselves down and making big business manufacturers rich, we're also bringing down our environment and the natural world. So we're behaving very much like a cancer to the planet. We don't want to die, and we destroy our host. And that combination is unsustainable. So we have to change. Each one teach one, and just change, because if everybody stopped drinking cola today, they'd stop making it tomorrow. It would be that fast without any regulation from Washington. None of us are going to live that long to see that kind of wholesale change. We have to dictate more responsible manufacturing trends. And that comes from using our purchasing power and our hard-earned dollars. And the more people that take on the Cancer Schmancer way of living and become medical consumers and start reading labels and going organic and regenerative farming and start buying things that are eco-friendly in your home, the more you're going to see that you don't get sick as much. And if you do get it, you know how to self-care. You don't have to run to the doctor for everything. You don't have to take a prescription for everything. You can help yourself because you know how to live differently. And this is what we at Cancer Schmancer are trying to drive home, because we are in a very dangerous place right now. And it's all driven by greed. And believe me, I have nothing against making money, but making money at the expense of all things of true value. You, your family, your pet's health, your children, the land, the food you eat, the water you drink, the air you breathe, and then the natural world, all of our siblings on this planet who make everything work because everything has a purpose under heaven. We are a very dangerous species, and we have to wake up and stop behaving this way. And the more people that I can reach to start thinking differently, changing the way you live, taking a deep dive into resisting buying the things that are hurting us, the happier I will be, because money talks and the bottom line is the bottom line. So stop buying it and they'll get the message loud and clear. Oh, they don't want to buy this toxic food. They don't want to eat animals that are living a Dickensian life and being stuffed with growth hormones and antibiotics and eating toxic food that is unnatural to them.
No, it's the work. I mean, really, the message obviously it rings in my ear because this is the stuff I support and defend as well. But you've actually created programs that are really lovely as well. I mean, in terms of Detox Your Home is one of the programs, and Be the Change with Jamie Foxx. Tell me about those two programs.
And you can find them at cancerschmancer.org. You can sign up. The membership is absolutely free. And everything that we do, we always offer for free at some point because we're a nonprofit. And the Jamie Foxx project, Be the Change, targets teens and tweens to take control of their own bodies and start challenging authority figures both at school and at home to teach their elders how to live more healthfully and to be the generation that breaks this cycle of abuse of our health and of the planet. It's very empowering and it's very viewer friendly. I'm in it, he's in it, but there's also animation in it and other kids that they can watch and, align themselves with. And it's, a teaching class and very effective, I think.
Well, kids are the most absorptive of anyone, of any demographic. Firstly, they use the more personal care products in 24 hours than any other demographic, which is crazy, but true because there's marketing.
That's the other thing that they have to realize, that manufacturers don't care about them. They're using them. They're manipulating them. They're tapping into a young person's insecurity of wanting to belong, wanting to be accepted. I mean, this style of advertising began in the early 20th century with Freud's nephew, who understood that if you tap into people's insecurities, you can make a woman buy a dress she doesn't need because you'll make her feel like her husband will find her more attractive, or you'll convince a man to buy a car he can't afford because he needs to keep up with the neighbors to feel better about himself. This is very insidious type of target advertising that is still embraced today. Every ad that you see is tapping into your insecurity to make you feel like if you buy this product, you're going to be better for it. And prior to that type of advertising in the early 20th century, people didn't buy in excess. People just got what they needed.
Right.
And they weren't a throwaway society either. They hung on to it if it was still good. And they repurposed things that was finished, but the container was still good. Or, the dress can't be worn anymore because maybe it has too many rips in it, but there's enough fabric on it that it could be made into
Repaired.
something else.
Right.
That was the mentality of Americans pre-early 20th century and also before agrochemicals were introduced into our society. Chemicals that were developed for war. When there was no war and it was peacetime, the chemical industry decided to repurpose them into civilian life and convince civilians that they need these chemicals in order to be modern and contemporary and happy. So it's all a big, horrible brainwashing. And once you wake up and smell the coffee, it's hard to go back to sleep. So we at Cancer Schmancer are sounding the alarm and telling everyone the emperor has no clothes. So stop buying into the BS because it's not serving any of us well.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the messaging I give is it's actually cheaper to not buy all of this stuff, to buy a doorknob cleaner and a window cleaner and a mirror cleaner and like 20, 30, 40 different cleaners for what you could use with just vinegar and, water and, Castile soap.
Rubbing alcohol, white vinegar,
absolutely.
lemon juice, soda.
Yeah,
and
all of that.
Yeah, water. It's just, and that's what we do. I repurposed all my old plastic spray bottles that were already eco-friendly products. But I said to my housekeeper, we don't have to keep buying these bottles. Let's just refill it. And I put a little peppermint essential oil in, and it smells so fresh. But that's also an antibacterial.
Yeah.
And a little bit of vinegar and water, and it's fantastic. You can spray it on so many surfaces. You can make your own abrasive cleanser for, other kinds of surfaces and things with baking soda and water. And I think that you will save a lot of money. And with the money that you save, you could probably buy organic food.
And that's exactly it. It's utilizing your money in the way that's the safest and healthiest. We talk about it, you and I, about water filters. There's just so much better use for the money that we can save than putting it towards more products and more plastic filled products, with chemicals in them and surrounding them. And which, I think you're doing a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't know if people who are listening, they're going to know now that you're the new president of SAG-AFTRA, which is basically the Actors Guild. And you have a lot of, big plans to make some changes, which, first of all, congratulations. And second of all, tell us some of the things that you're planning to do that have to do with not only human health and wellness, but also sustainability and reducing plastics.
Well, we're the largest entertainment industry in the world, and I feel like we have a responsibility to that world. We are actors, but we're also stunt people. We're recording artists. We're broadcasters. We're background players. We're commercial actors. We're dancers. We cover the gamut on entertainment, and we're 160,000 members strong. So we're also the largest and most powerful influencers on the planet. So in the past, I think that this union, under different leadership, has always maintained neutrality. And in this administration, of which I am the president, I'm saying we're done being Switzerland, and it's time to take a stand on issues that matter, to put us out there on the national landscape in a big, bold way, to take a position, and to be in the zeitgeist and elevate us, in the nation as a beacon, and leverage the celebrity members that we have and our reach as influencers around the world. So I've started the first Green Council, which I'm gathering together a constellation of different associations and guilds and NGOs who are all industry engaged, and high-profile celebrities and basketball players and football players who are also members of SAG-AFTRA. And we are going to start with the cornerstone of change that will, upon which we will build an ongoing legacy for the Green Council. So the industry-wide ban on single-use plastic is what we're going to come out of the gate with. And of course, there are other things that we have a lot of legislative acts in Washington that have been knocking around for literally decades. And I'm going to Washington and making some noise. And I'm hoping that during this administration, they will finally get passed. There's a Tax Parity Act, there's a Music Fairness Act, but there's also the Violence Against Women Act. There's also what's called the Crown Act, and that is going to protect people of color who have hair that is unlike Caucasian hair to not be faced with racism and prejudice in the workplace.
Interesting.
It's elevating our consciousness so that we don't think that if you don't wear your hair like a white person, it's wrong. And that's what's wrong. So people have to be educated and consciousness has to be raised. And they have to start realizing that we must celebrate the many diverse threads that make up the fabric of the human experience.
I think it's wonderful. You're doing great things. And that wasn't your first trip to Washington. You've been down to Washington for some other things, right?
Yes, I'm quite known down there. And
Yeah.
everybody
They hear
was
you coming. They said, Fran's
very
coming.
happy. Yeah, they
Yeah.
were happy to see me. I met with the vice president, the speaker, the leader, the head of the Motion Picture Association, the head of the Recording Industry of America Association. I met with Liz Schuler, who's the head of the AFL-CIO, which she is the first woman president of the Association of all labor unions in America. And so it is an exciting time for me to be president because I'm ambitious for us to make a difference. And it is a time for labor unions to be recognized. It's a time for diversity and inclusion. It's a time for women leaders. I saw the president's State of the Union address, and it just made me proud to see both chairs behind him filled by women of power. And that is moving in the right direction, because until women are invited to the table, nothing will ever get accomplished in the best direction possible. We have a different sensibility about things, and it must be included in every conversation.
Listen, you are a strong proponent of women and women's health. Even passing, I guess, back, when was it that you passed or helped pass the Bipartisan Gynecologic Cancer Education and Awareness Act?
Yes.
That was back in when was that?
I think it was
2007.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. So,
and that passed by unanimous consent.
I know, bipartisan, which is just mind blowing, right? What is bipartisan anymore? So,
well, all the bills that we're working on, I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah.
Bipartisanship and talking to people about the issues that I'm fighting for. There's you can't believe everything that you see on the news either, because it really doesn't show what ever is healthy and positive going on. And there are things that are healthy and positive, and all of these bills are bipartisan bills. I'm a big believer in that. And, I'm bringing Buddhist wisdom to my administration and when I go to Washington. And I think that that's an interesting angle on how we relate to people and how we speak to people and how they can hear our messaging.
Well, I think they've been waiting for you, and I think it's going to benefit many, many people because you are now at the helm. So I think it's really wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I know you kind of have a strong out, but I will say that it's really been, quite fun to meet you. When I met you on the boardwalk, this is the Beshert story that when I was with my kids and on vacation in Santa Monica and you were having lunch, I think Christmas Day, Jewish Christmas celebration for Fran Drescher with all your people. And I went over to you. I waited all during the meal, sent my kids out, said, go, get lost, and went over to you because I had seen you 16 years ago, prior to that in the elevator at the hospital in New York City when I was a medical resident. And so I had used my line, my one moment, my elevator pitch to say, hey, are you Fran Drescher? I remember you from 16 years ago when we were in New York together. And you were like, oh. So that was the beginning. And you were lovely. You were just really warm and lovely. And, since then I've been, thrilled to work with you in every way. So
I guess I either gave you my card or took your name and passed it on. But I am a believer in the signs that the universe gives me. And when I run into a random person that I don't know, not once, but twice, and they come over to me, I mean, what are the odds of that really happening? There's more here than meets the eye. And, I'm very tuned into that because for me, coincidence is when God chooses to be anonymous.
Yeah. No, it was lovely, and I waited by the computer. And it worked out. We got together.
And you've turned your pain into purpose.
Yeah, no.
And, your skill set as a doctor for educating the public in a new and fresh way. And I think that all of our medical advisory board members for Cancer Schmancer, of which you are one, I'm proud to say, are the pioneers of where medicine is moving, and you're going to eventually be the norm.
We hope.
Not,
we hope.
Without question. There's no way that,
Well, things have to change. I mean, let's just say that the system is really a mess. And we have to start, as you know, really going upstream to prevention. We have to teach it in medical schools, which is a very difficult thing.
We spend way too much money on trying to well people because it's being driven by for-profit businesses.
Right.
And yet we as the taxpayers are footing the bill. And if we would just pivot to a healthier lifestyle, we would not get sick as much. I see it with myself.
Yeah.
I see it with my parents. I see it with my friends. I see it with the Cancer Schmancer followers, as I'm sure you do with your patients. It makes all the difference in the world when you support your immune system instead of abuse it.
Yeah. No, really wonderful. I think it's just great to have your voice also because, look, there are celebrities, they do their thing, they do their skill set well, but to step into the realm of activism, I think takes a certain kind of heart and tenacity. So I appreciate all the work you're doing. And thank you again so much for taking the time for chatting with me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ailey. I applaud you. You're wonderful. This is my absolute pleasure. And I hope everybody goes to cancerschmancer.org, signs up, and learns how they can help themselves and their families live a long and healthy life.
Thanks, Fran.
Take care. Bye.